Good morning, everyone. This is Randy with Snap Judgments. I am coming to you today to do a full first round mock draft. And this is a pre recorded video, I should note. I'm recording this Monday night because I'm going to be doing an interview tomorrow morning while this is airing for Wednesday's episode. So that's going to be bringing you a special. What I'm doing is I'm bringing on a track and field coach, speed expert, sports science expert, to discuss kind of the minutia of the 40-yard dash and what's important to take away from it beyond the overall number, why the overall number kind of isn't really what you need to take away from it. So we're going to be talking about all the details of that on Wednesday's episode, but I'll be doing the interview while this is airing. So we're going to do the full first round of mock draft today. We'll talk through it pick by pick, and just a few things to go over first. Now, this morning we obviously took the day off due to the blizzard. I was worried about power outages and internet issues. We ended up getting 37.9 inches of snow here in Providence. That was measured at TF Green Airport. That's about a mile, maybe 2 miles down the road from my house. So just under 38 inches of snow. Didn't end up losing power or internet. The internet was a little shaky at times, but overall, not bad. Now, to get into more relevant stuff, Antonio Gibson let go by the Patriots today, ran for just over 100 yards, like 25 carries before he got hurt early in the year. Had the one highlight kickoff return for a touchdown. That was exciting. But look, coming off the injury, it's not surprising. I talked about it last week, how that was potentially something that they might just let him go and try and find somebody else who can be the third option back, maybe a kick return weapon. It just depended on how they felt about the medicals, and clearly they did not feel good about them. So maybe they like him and maybe they bring him back later in the process if he heals up or, doesn't end up signing elsewhere. But right now, today, Antonio Gibson was let go, and the Patriots could very well be looking for that third option running back in the draft if they don't find him in free agency. Now, speaking of free agency, there was some reported interest from the Patriots in Rasheed Walker, left tackle of the Green Bay Packers this year. Now, I've seen places that project him to get around $20 million a year in a contract, similar to what the deal the Titans signed Dan Moore Jr. to last year. I don't see it. I don't know. Jack Aylmeyer on Twitter reported this, that this was according to Jason La Canfora of, I think he's NFL Network, that they were interested in him. Walker has played all 17 games in each of the last 3 seasons, starting 48 of those. PFF gave him a 64.6 overall grade in 2025, which was 52nd best out of 89 qualifying tackles. Now, that obviously isn't great. Meanwhile, Will Campbell got a 72.6 overall grade, which was 32nd of 89 tackles. So I don't understand why the Patriots would be interested in spending 20 plus million a year to bring in a guy that's worse than your current starting left tackle. After especially really doubling down on the idea that Will Campbell was going to be your starting left tackle. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Look, the combine begins lying season. It begins GMs, coaches, front office personnel playing media games. And I think that it seems to me that Mike Vrabel kind of enjoys the gamesmanship side of things at times. I know like Andrew Berry in Cleveland was really good at this, and Vrabel was involved over there last year, not involved in the draft process, obviously, but I just think that he kind of shares that same enjoyment of the gamesmanship of the media aspect of this. Sometimes he has some exasperation for the media, but I think he likes playing them also. Um, Zach Core officially named defensive coordinator. I'm not sure I've mentioned that before. Obviously deserved. They gave Terrell Williams a promotion of some sort. It'll be like a assistant head coach type of deal, I think. And lastly, Max Ihinekor, uh, right tackle. People are really excited about him. Arizona State prospect. Probably projects to like the end of the first round, start of the second round right now. But I have become aware of some questions about him and his age. Now, going back to a 2022 recruiting report, it listed him then at age 22, which would make him 26 now. Um, that's old for a rookie. That would be the oldest rookie in this draft class, to my knowledge. Um, I I was talking to somebody about this earlier today. He said that according to his research, a rookie, no rookie above the age of 25 and a half has ever been selected in the top 50. Max Ihinekor also, there's a lot of projection. It's a lot of raw talent. He just started playing football like 5 years ago. Um, so there's a lot of projection in there. And I'm not sure if it turns out that he's 26 years old, that's very concerning for his draft stock. Okay. If you're 26 years old and you've got a lot of growing to do, and if I take you in the first round, you're going to be 31 years old at the end of your rookie contract. Um, that's extremely concerning. Okay. Now, if you take him in the second or third round, somewhere like that, he's still 30 years old at the end of his rookie contract. All right. I just don't know about investing high draft capital in a guy at that age. So that's something we're going to be keeping a real close eye on. The NFL Combine, obviously, it starts this week. Um, on-field workouts begin on Thursday, but there's a bunch of stuff that happens before that. Today, players were registering. There's pre-exam orientation. Team interviews start today with early player arrivals. Team interviews start primarily with the place kickers, DL, and linebackers. So those guys, they started arriving yesterday on Sunday. Sorry, not yesterday. This is airing on Tuesday. They started arriving on Sunday. They start their team interviews today on Monday. Again, this is airing on Tuesday. My mistake. DBs and tight ends start arriving Monday. Then Tuesday, medical exam for the special teams, DL and linebackers. They've also team interviews throughout. Okay. Registration, pre-exam for the DBs and tight ends Tuesday. And then they go medical Wednesday, the running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers medical on Thursday. But Thursday is really when the viewer portion of things kicks off. Defensive linemen and linebackers will be on the field Thursday. Friday, defensive backs and tight ends. Saturday, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And Sunday, offensive linemen. So our schedule this week, again, I've got I'm going to call him a speed specialist. I'll be talking to him tomorrow. That episode should air on Wednesday. That will be just before these things kick off. And then I'm working on talking with a strength and conditioning specialist this week also, so I can kind of get some specialist, shed some light on some of these athletic events from a real professional standpoint. Give you an idea of kind of what matters and what doesn't. So anyway, that's all that I have on kind of extra stuff. I believe. Let's that. All right, good. All right, cool. We are ready to go. Let me pull up this tab here. Share that. True. Yep, that's what we're gonna do there. Where is it? That's fine. All right, there we go. All right, so this is the full first round mock draft that I'm going to be doing of this season. I don't do a lot of these because I just don't really care who the Rams draft or who the Raiders draft, right? They're not really my team. I am interested in the overall draft. I just don't do as many of these as I guess I used to. Most of the mock drafts that I do are for the purpose of the Patriots. That's really what I end up doing. A lot of like team drafts, a lot of 3-round, 4-round, 7-round drafts, that sort of thing. So, all right, starting off here, we've got the Vegas Raiders on the clock. The consensus seems to be that Fernando Mendoza will be the pick. I do want to add kind of just one quick thought, I guess, two quick thoughts. Excuse me. Mendoza may very well be the pick, and I just think that it's between the quarterback and the head coach. I feel like there's got to be an alpha type personality, if you will, or take charge type personality. And I don't see that in Mendoza and Clint Kubiak. So I'm just a little curious about like how the dynamic of that is going to work, right? And I also think it's weird that, you know, a franchise that's partially owned by the greatest quarterback of all time who went 199th overall would feel like you absolutely have to spend the first overall pick on a quarterback in a 1 QB class just because you need a quarterback. I don't know. Maybe, I guess it's, again, it seems to be the consensus thing. I'm always the guy who would want to trade down, add draft ammunition. I always like building, kind of more sure things with, which none of these guys are sure things, but I always feel like, there are some guys that are easier to project, and a quarterback's just really tough to project to the NFL. So I don't know. We'll see. Look, the Jets are up next, and I think that there's a lot of good conversation to be had about adding a wide receiver here. I just think it's really early to do it. All right. You've got pick 2. I honestly, to me, this is kind of probably an ideal trade down scenario if anybody really wanted to trade up. I just don't know who would. The Jets have got to do a couple things better in their, well, they've got to do everything better. But the most important things that I think that they have to do better are intercept the ball and get after the quarterback, right? Let me take a real quick peek at their roster depth chart here on ESPN, and I'll sorry, we're doing this live, so it's going to be a little clunky at times. Well, not live, but this is pre-recorded, but it's a live. Yes, see, they've got the smaller ends. Like Will McDonald's not big, Jermaine Johnson's not big, and they've spent picks there too. Those interior D tackles, Harrison Phillips and Jay Tufele. I don't know how you say that, but they're not great. The linebackers aren't great either. And Arvell Reese is actually technically a linebacker. Man, it's hard to project Arvell Reese as like the second overall pick, but then where else do you go? You're not going to take a safety second overall, most likely. It seems to be something that's frowned upon, but they could probably use one. Cisco, Malachi Moore. Moore did play well last year. Kiko Mauigoa. They don't need the offensive line really, so that's why you'd think about trading back, right? You don't need a quarterback, you don't need an offensive line. And wide receiver is definitely a position of need here. But again, I feel like that's something you address later. So I wonder if you couldn't figure out a place for Bane here, but maybe not. I don't know. Their edge rusher, you know what? Man, all right, you know what? I just think there's not a perfect fit here, but I think that I'm going to end up going David Bailey for them here at 2. He's the best pure edge on the board. Look, Arvell Reese, people talk about him as an edge, but he's played linebacker primarily. He's still a brand new prospect too. I mean, this is the first year he really came on. I don't know about, man. It's tough to take a guy second overall who you didn't even know existed 1 year ago, and you're also projecting a position change. It's a tough ask. Okay. So here at 3, Arizona's going to go Francis Mauigoa. Apparently the G is pronounced with an N, so that's why I'm saying it that way. But Francis Mauigoa is the best offensive line prospect in this draft. Probably it's either him or Spencer Fano. Both play right tackle. Both, a lot of people think, could project into guard. Either way, I think he upgrades the Arizona offensive line here. This is a weird draft because it's like none of these top picks are really like premier, crazy elite talents, right? There's no lock guys. I mean, even Fernando Mendoza, like if you last year's draft or the draft before, probably wouldn't be the top quarterback. David Bailey wouldn't be the top edge. Francis Mauigoa wouldn't be the top tackle. There are very few guys in this class that would be the top at their respective position in other classes. Just a very, very weak class. So with the Titans on the clock here, this is another team that largely uses the kind of smaller pass rushers. They need someone offensively also. We're going to let's see. Let's pull this Titans depth chart up and take a look. I know Arden Key is on his way out the door in free agency potentially. Calvin Ridley really didn't pay out. Okay, this team needs a look. This is a wide receiver pick easily. And what you got to do is you got to take your number 1 pick. And look, man, I love Jordan Tyson. Okay, he's so talented, but he's also injured all the time. I mean, he's missed something like 48% of his college games. I just can't rely on that. And when I'm picking 4th overall, I need someone I can rely on. Okay. Carnell Tate, Mr. Reliable, great player. He kind of came up short in that last game, and that's really the only knock against him. He would probably fit in better in a place he didn't have to be the number 1. He's been the number 2 at Ohio State at his best year, which is this year, next to Jeremiah Smith. And he was the number 3 behind Ibuka and Smith last year. So it's hard. We don't know how he'll be at the number 1 spot. So it really gives you a choice. All right, Carnell Tate, who's a little bit of a projection to be your number 1 overall, or Jordan Tyson, who injuries might be concerning. Right now, because we're still pre-combine and we haven't heard anything come out about Tyson's injuries and how the NFL feels about them. And we did see, we just haven't seen anything yet about how they feel about those injuries, right? So We're gonna go ahead I'm gonna go ahead and take Tyson. I think he can be the lead dog in a room for sure. Um, I don't know that about Carnell Tate. Really like Carnell Tate. He's a great player. But I just don't know 100% that he's the guy that can lead the room. But I know Tyson can carry the load. So, moving right along to the Giants, I'm gonna take a look at their depth chart real quick because I'm telling you right now, man, they've already got Tyler Newman wasn't bad, was he? Oh yeah, no, he was bad. Well, grade wise, he was bad. Yeah, not a good season for him. All right, 78th out of 98 safeties, 57.2 overall PFF grade. That's not good. Look, the Giants are going to go ahead and they're going to take the top player in this draft on a lot of boards. They're going to take Caleb Downs at the safety position. John Harbaugh knows the value of a good safety, and Caleb Downs is just that. He is a very good safety. He may not put up eye-popping numbers this week at the combine. He's just not that type of elite athlete, but he is that type of elite football player. Okay, he started from day one at Alabama, moved over to Ohio State, two premier programs in college. He was absolutely dominant at them. I think this is kind of an easy pick. All right, we're going to take a look here at Cleveland. I'm going to do something wild here. I'm telling you right now. Consider yourself warned ahead of time. I saw this floated in a chat earlier. I think it was actually a Draft Professors chat. And by the way, I am doing this mock on draftprofessors.com. This is my preferred mock draft engine. You know what? Yeah. Monroe Freeling is, in my opinion, the best pure left tackle prospect in this class. Okay, he's got all the physical tools. He's got all the athleticism. He could use some coaching, but man, this kid can ball. Cleveland, their entire offensive line is going into free agency right now. They barely had a left tackle to begin with. Monroe Freeling is going to give them more to work with than they've had in a long time. I'm taking him 6th overall right here. 6th overall, Monroe Freeling. That's the highest I've seen him go. But you know what? Do not be surprised. I'm just here to tell you right now, do not be surprised when Monroe Freeling goes top 10 in this draft. Especially after the show I expect him to put on here at the combine. Number 7 on the clock, Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's the guy who kind of turned Micah Parsons into a star. Okay, essentially, he was in Dan Quinn's scheme. He really found great ways to use him. Micah Parsons was a star, and a lot of it's 99% Micah Parsons, but the coach has got to put you in the right positions. Dan Quinn knew where to put Micah Parsons, and he's also going to know where to put Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese goes off the board 7th to the Commanders. That brings us to the Saints here, and this I think is going to be where Ruben Bain, where his free fall stops. Let's just take a look at what they've got on the depth chart real quick. These other teams I've got to look. I just can't shoot from the hip. Patriots, I could shoot from the hip pretty easy. Yeah. See, Cam Jordan, he's old. Right. Let's see. How old is he? 36. Goodness. Yeah, he'll be 37 before the season starts. What? Stop that. That's an ad. Sorry, guys. All right. Cam Jordan, 6'4", 287. This is the body type they like. They spent a first-round pick on him back in the day, too. And he He's going to be 37 this year. This feels like a Ruben Bain spot to me. Ruben Bain heads to New Orleans at 8. All right, Kansas City's on the clock here at 9. And look, they've got issues all over the place. No longer on the offensive line. They did spend all that money last year and a high draft pick. They're almost kind of overloaded on the offensive line for once. But thanks to Rashee Rice's complete and utter inability to ever stay out of trouble, they've certainly got needs there. All right, let's take a look at their depth chart real quick before I make this pick. My girlfriend is from Kansas, and she is a secondary, that is her secondary team, because she's lived here for a long time now. So I need to get this pick right. So, a lot of people have him taking Jeremiah Love here, but I just don't see it. Travis Kelce, see, it's just running back value being what it is. You can find those guys. Now, they took the D tackle last year, Omar Norman, a lot. We've got Jerry Tillery on the roster there too, and Derek Nottie, who is, how old is this guy? 29. Drafted there too, back in 2018. All right, Leo Chanel, but they don't need, I don't think they need a linebacker. I don't think they need a corner either. Matt Chabot that I had on the podcast last week feels like Kansas City is great at developing corners, and they do not need to take corners early. Their offensive line chart is surprisingly thin, given how much they've spent on the offensive line. But Jalen Moore is a swing tackle, is an expensive swing tackle. Carl Loftus there, and Adiku Zoma, and they went and got Ashton Gelade last year. That's the edge positions. I could see him beefing up this D tackle spot, replacing Derek Nottie with someone better. I'm very, very tempted to go defense for these guys, to be honest with you. Again, I know the popular pick's been on offense. But, man, if you can't make it work with Pat Mahomes, it doesn't really matter who you got a receiver. Chris Jones is going to be 32 this summer. Probably get another couple years out of him, but are they going to be great years? You know what? All right. Let's do it. Man. All right, I'm going to stick with the board, and I'm going to go Peter Woods here, okay? But just let it be known that I am very, very tempted to take Caleb Banks first instead. All right. Hopefully I muted it in time. All right, we've got the Bengals, number 10 on the clock. And the Bengals need everything defense, pretty much. They really need to create some sort of pressure on their opposing quarterbacks. I'm pulling up their depth chart right now. They need offensive line too, by the way. Not great there. But they really, really need defense. The D-tackle situation isn't great. TJ Slayton Jr., BJ Hill. BJ Hill's there. He's not much. I don't even know who TJ Slayton Jr. is. He's picked round 5 in 2021. He's 20 years old. Out of Florida. Demetrius Knight Jr. picked last year. Garrett Carter, probably 2 years ago, I think. Warren Burke. Um, well, Dax Hill's playing corner for these guys, and he was drafted as a safety. Sure. All right. Let's go ahead and give these guys a cornerback. A lot of people like sending Keldrick Fault to Cincinnati. Sonny Styles would be a great option there too. Great option. Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and put Sonny Styles on the Bengals. Um, but people can say linebacker is a low value position, but I'm here to tell you it's a high impact position on the football field. Sonny Styles will help that defense a lot. They invested rather heavily in the defensive line in terms of draft capital over the past couple drafts. If you count Miles Murphy, who I believe is a first round pick, Shamar Stewart was a first round pick. They need to start developing those guys and start giving up some more help behind them. They had Demetrius Knight, is that his name? Yeah, Demetrius Knight Jr. that they drafted last year, playing linebacker. This is a spot in the second round. I could see them pursuing someone like Messidor or something like that for the defensive line. They Demetrius Knight Jr. He was the oldest player in the draft last year, I believe. He was like 25 when he was drafted, so they don't mind that sort of thing. Um, all right, we're here with Miami, and Miami needs also a number of things. But I'll tell you right now, last year Storm Duck was their starting cornerback. You cannot have that be the situation going into the year next year. They're going to take Jermod McCoy. A lot of people think he's the best corner on the board, all the health issues aside. Um, as long as his medicals check out this week at the combine and for teams and their visits or pro day or what have you, I think he should probably I mean, he could definitely be the number one corner taken off the board. Derek Stingley really started this trend a few years ago, right? Putting like one good season on tape and then not giving a shit the rest of the way. So, Jerron McCoy apparently could have come back early, kind of like late in the season this past year. I think he should have just put a little bit of a couple games on tape showing that he can make some movements. But yeah, he didn't. So we'll see how that works out for him. I still expect him to be a high draft this year. All right. Cowboys next. Mansoor Delane. He's the pick here. 33 minutes in this. I can solve the time. Mansoor Delane's the pick here. Look, their new defensive back coach recruited Mansoor Delane to Virginia. He was his coach there. There's a lot of background and familiarity and so forth. Makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. Um, Now we're on to the Rams. I'm going to pull up their depth chart real quick. They also, I felt like they had issues at cornerback position. I think they would have really liked to take one of these two guys. But Devontae Adams definitely on the old side. Obviously, they're starting wide receivers. Oh, they need right tackle help in a big way. One injury, yeah, because Havenstein just retired. Right, that's going to be, I think, the answer to these guys. Um, yeah, I think the right tackle became their top need here, and Ultimately, Spencer Fano is the easy solution there. All right, you can plug him in around later, but like around the offensive line later on. If you were to find a right tackle you liked better or something like that, he's the guy who helps you get your best five on. I think you can address the cornerback need because I do think they have a cornerback need, but I think that they could address that at pick 29 potentially. So, um, the Baltimore Ravens next on the clock. Let's pull their depth chart up here and talk our way through this pick. Look, I've seen a lot of people giving them wide receiver. I actually kind of take that as an option for them. They're likely to lose likely. And top wide receiver is Zay Flowers. DeAndre Hopkins is like 1,000 years old. Devontae Walker, young guy, hasn't really done much of anything. Rashad Bateman, what's he? He's got to be like 27, 28 by now. 26. Hasn't ever really been much of anything. 200 yards last year in 13 games. Man, that receiver out there just refused to give this guy a bit of a correction. All right, you know what? Okay, they need wide receiver help, and they need bigger guys. They don't need the small guy in the kind of moment. They need because they've already got Zay Flowers, right? They need Carnell Tate, and that's what they're going to get here. Man, I would have really liked to see Carnell Tate somewhere he didn't have to be the one, but I think this is going to work out for Baltimore also. Maybe they keep D Hop around and he kind of educates Carnell Tate on how to do things right. Right. Tampa Bay is next on the clock. Now, I went linebacker all year, Jahad Campbell for them last year, and then he fell right past them. Possibly medical issues, I don't know. He seemed to work out all right in Philly, though. Taking a real quick look at their roster here. Like the bigger ends, Elijah Roberts starting. Elijah Canson's injured. He's young, 24. Had 5 last year. Elijah Roberts. If I were them, I think I would want to add a big guy here on the edge, and I think Kelvin Falk might be a great pick for them. Yeah. Yeah. It's their top pass rushers, 270 pounds. Linebacker Chris Perez was second option. He's second round pick. 55 pounds. Yeah. Again, he was protected this year. 7 sacks this year, not forced fumble. I cannot believe it. Man, it's a heavy run. You got Elijah Roberts, Peter Vale, Logan Holland, Yanni Hubby out there. I would think you would want. And you guys are Monte David is just a fucking fossil in NFL years. 36. At linebacker, man, you really do need the linebacker help here and the edge help. And this is a place. What about Arnaz and Thomas here? Zion Young. Both those guys here, but I do like Kendrick Falk here too. That makes a lot of sense. And then Elijah Roberts. I do have Elijah Cansey. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. We know there are issues. Probably they really would like to. It's weird to me you have Yaya Diaby starting in a linebacker spot. Levante David is ancient. Sir Shia Dennis. I don't even know who this other is linebacker is. Never heard of him. Round 5, 2023. Class. Went to Pitt. Smaller, 230. Alright. So trying to work myself through this pick, and I'm telling you what. I think that I'm going to go. Who's the linebacker groups? I just don't think there's linebackers. Sonny Styles were still on the board. He'd be an easy pick for these guys. He's not. I'm going to take TJ Parker for him. Okay. We'll see how that works. All right. The Jets are up next. They've got needs all over the place again. They picked earlier in the draft and they took David Bailey. They have cornerback needs, wide receiver needs, defensive line, really everywhere. Anywhere. It's a BPA situation, I think. And and in this situation, it's hard to argue against Makai Lemon being BPA here, right? But what if they just let Breece Hall walk? And BPA probably is Jeremiah Love in this situation. And if Breece Hall walks, so we'll just make sure they didn't announce any intentions towards him. Evaluating the tags, a long-term deal is possible. And this is from this one's from the 21st. He's a franchise tag candidate, Jets weighing all options. There's really no actual answer yet. Jeremy Fowler reports that the Jets are weighing all options with Breece Hall's future. This could include a tag or an effort to sign him to a long-term contract. Okay, so currently, to be a free agent. Inside the league, expecting to use the transition tag, market has been determined. They haven't touched July 15th. All right, you know what? These guys had an absolutely anemic offense last year. Their starting running back was 1 foot out the door all season. The best player on the board, probably and arguably right now, is Jeremiah Love. The Jets are going to take him at 16. 17, Detroit Lions. The Lions had real issues on the offensive line last year. Okay, and these issues are not due to their tackles all of a sudden suck or any of that. All right, they're due to the center retired. All right. Now, there's a lot of movement around, and there's discussion about Taylor Decker too. Is he retired and coming back? 31 years old. I feel like he's coming back. That's great. If I should return for one final season. Yeah, I think you should. All right. Well, regardless of if Taylor Decker comes back or not, there's not really an ideal replacement for him right here in the first round. On players available are interior guys, but they're not centers. Could play center, maybe, who knows. But they're not centers. Top center available, you wouldn't have thought twice about taking at this spot earlier in the year. That's Connor Lee. Then he tore his ACL. Now that's hard to justify. Some people really like Chase Visanges in this class. Also, he wasn't a center end. He was left guard, left tackle. I'm going to take Connor Lee for the trip. I'm going to say his injuries check out. I'm going to say they desperately need a starting center of the future. They know the value of that. And they say, hey, it's worth it to give him some time to come onto the field, come back from injury. We just want a stud center for the next 10 years. All right. And that's what you're going to get out of Connor Lee. You're going to get the anchor of your line. Your line's going to be back to being one of the best in the league. You just need to be patient. I don't think they make stupid short-term decisions there. I think they know the value of a good center. They get themselves the best one in this draft class. Now we're going to move on to Minnesota here. The depth chart, obviously they would be an interesting spot. So they got a lot of things they just don't have that quarterback spot figured into that. They also had issues along the interior of the offensive line at times, issues at left tackle at times. Start looking at their roster and you realize its safety spot might be a little bit potential issue. Joshua Metellus, former round 6th pick, ended the season questionable. Looks like he had some injuries here. We had a 3-year, $36 million deal 7 months ago. So there's that. All right. I've got the inbound linebackers deal checks. So I'm really tempted to go. So this would have been a great spot for Jeremiah Love. Like where we had him going here. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. A wide receiver they really liked. Could make sense. No, could make sense too. It's a tight end. T.J. Hawkinson's got a 30. 20. All right. Oh, 10 minutes. Well, I'm 49 minutes in. I like to crack the whip on myself a little bit here. Minnesota Vikings, Jonathan Allen, what? Jalen Redmond, most 6 years old, 291 pounds. You know what? Let's get Caleb Banks for these guys. I'm not super impressed by their defensive line. The guys that are there are a little bit older, right? Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, both outside of 30. Yeah, Allen's 31. Just turned 31. Hargrave is just turned 33. And then Jalen Redmond is listed as their nose tackle, who's 291 pounds. And he's 26, former UDFA. I don't like any of these guys. I don't think any of them are great. Let's go ahead and take Caleb Banks for him. I like that. The Panthers here, look, they need a number of things, but I think the most impactful thing for them is Mikhail Lemon. I think you put him at the slot, you play him in between T-Mac, McMillan, and whoever you play on the other side, Jalen Coker or the real Southern kid. I forget his name. It's escaping me right now. I really like him too. Wildly Southern accent. Where is it? Let's see. Xavier Leggett. So yeah. I mean, you throw Mikhail Lemon in the slot. Tedero McMillan is the X receiver. Xavier Leggett, Jalen Coker is the Z receiver, whatever. Leggett probably becomes the X backup. Then Coker probably becomes the Z, and Mikhail Lemon plays in the slot. But man, that's perfect. Bryce Young stops having any excuses. You've got perfect weapons at that point in time. Dallas Cowboys on the clock at pick 20. They went Mansour Delane with their first pick. They're going to take Keldrick Falk with their second pick. Real young, youngest player in the draft. Not old enough to buy a beer to celebrate being picked. He is 20 years old at the time of the draft. He'll turn 21 in September. High floor, good run defender. I think Michael Williams from last year's draft. There's a lot of room to develop this kid. Again, real young. Um, Steelers, I think they. Oh man, why could I see them taking Drew Aller here? God, I could just. Am I crazy? I could see it. I don't know why. Let's do crazy things. Let's do crazy wild things here. You know, we're gonna do crazy wild things in this draft and take Drew Aller to the Steelers. I don't know why, man. I just feel like he's a Pittsburgh quarterback. I see him. I think about Ben Roethlisberger, big, strong arm. He's not the same quarterback. I get that. He needs development. I get that. I think Aaron Rodgers is at a place where he would be open to kind of mentoring, tutoring a backup behind him. He gets that he's not there for the next 10 years or whatever. I don't think he's stupid. I think he plays this right. All right. Look, the pick for the LA Chargers is super obvious because it's going to be on the offensive line. Their offensive line is terrible this year. Um, this is really a pick between Ioane and Emmanuel Pregnon. Ioane is widely considered to be the best offensive guard in this draft. Zion Johnson is up for free agency. Ioane slots right in there at the left guard. Immediately upgrades that spot. I like that pick a lot for them. Um, Now the Eagles, look, the Eagles' offensive line wasn't the same this year, just wasn't. Mekhi Becton left. Maybe they take him back specifically in free agency, but why not take Caden Proctor, who I project is kind of the next Mekhi Becton? Um, I think Becton, Caden Proctor has that body type that they like there, and they put him in there at the right guard position. Maybe Lane Johnson's able to teach him in his last year or two, or however long he stays there. um, where they've got a developmental right tackle or whatever, and Proctor ends up being the guard of the future. But that really worked out well for them one year with Becton. I see them trying to make the same thing work with Proctor. The Browns are here on the clock at 24, and just a refresher, we took Monroe Freeling at 6 for the Browns. And you know what? They're going to double up on the offensive line because there's nothing better you can do than pick good offensive linemen in the NFL draft when you need them. And I'm going to take Emmanuel Pregnon for them right here. Um, he's, by some accounts, the top, by other accounts, maybe the second offensive guard in this class. With this, they'll have rebuilt an offensive line. The very good beginnings of one. Monroe Freeling at left tackle, Emmanuel Pregnon at left guard, or maybe right guard, wherever you slot him in, because I know Wyatt Teller isn't coming back. Maybe they get Antonio to come back for a year. Maybe they go find somebody else for left guard or center or whatever. But Emmanuel Pregnon and Monroe Freeling, I really like that. back-to-back double-dipping on the offensive line for the Cleveland Browns here. I'm aware they need weapons. I think you can pursue some of those later. Chicago Bears are on the clock here. Sorry, I'm trying to get through these before I go way too far for my intended time. We've got the Bears on the clock here. They were really in tune with their stuff last year. I spent a few people at the tight end. Loveland going to them before Warren was off the board. Joe Tooney's a little older. Joe Jackson, the whole interior of that offensive line isn't super young, is it? I've heard for whatever reason they're high on running Byard back, but not necessarily Brisker. So that makes me think maybe they could use help at the safety position, especially some kind of youth injection there. I know I've been big on taking him later. Grady Jarrett, he is not young, but Shamar Turner is. He's back at 32. Shamar Turner, they took in the second round, I think, last year. Javon Dexter, they took in, I think, the third round the year before that. No, 2023, round 2. Okay, yeah, that's right. So even when Grady Jarrett retires or if he's too old or whatever, they've got 2 recent second-round picks there along the interior of the defensive line. Deo Oyingbo is a fun name to say. Edmonds, Edwards, Sewell. That's weird. All right. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. Look, I think if Kevin Byard's their top plan at safety to bring back, and he is 32 years old and playing safety, I think he'll be 30. Is he only 33 by the time the season starts? He is going to be 33 by the time the season starts. You know what? You almost have to go safety for this team. I'm going to go Dylan Dion. I think you can make an argument for Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Let's take a look at what Buffalo's got going on here. Buffalo, there are a number of options here. They need some things too because they've got some age issues. They've got offensive issues. And really, at the end of the day, you just hired your offensive coordinator to be your head coach because your team wasn't really able to get over the top. You've got a stud quarterback. You consistently struggled at getting wide receivers. And you just threw the old coach under the bus for drafting the last wide receiver you drafted high. So you've got to kind of go out and get your guy. I think it's kind of got to be a slightly different guy, too. It can't be like a slower, big body guy. You've got to, if you're going to get a big body guy, it's got to be someone with some burst, like Ted Hurst, maybe. See what kind of time he puts up there. And I mean, it's kind of a shame because I feel like your wide receivers are largely similar. Like Khalil Shakir, there's a little bit of crossover in like skill set from the guy I'm about to give you, but I don't know. We're going to go Conception for you guys. Hurst, Conception, Boston. It's a tough decision. Hurst, Conception. Let's just go with Conception. He's probably the better prospect. All right, we're loading here. San Francisco is on the clock. San Francisco, also another team that has some needs, outperformed expectations last year, and they really had some issues with injuries last year. It was a real problem for them. I mean, Brock Purdy was out most of the year. George Kittle, a little bit older, injured consistently throughout the year. Nick Bosa out most of the year. Michael Williams, their first round pick from last year, out most of the year. Fred Warner out most of the year. They were down to linebacker like 5 or 6 last year. And man, that really makes me think that they should think about a linebacker here. But this is a deep linebacker class. And I think they can address that spot later. Um, they also really had issues at receiver. Jawan Jennings, they had Kendrick Bourne on the field for a significant portion of offensive snaps last year. Ricky Pearsall's constantly in and out hurt. Demarcus Robinson was making impact plays. Sky Moore is scheduled to be a free agent. So is Jawan Jennings, who's going to want like 20-something million a year. And we just haven't even talked about Brandon Ayuk, who wants to get out of there too. Um, let's give him Omar Cooper Jr. I like that pick for them. The Texans here, the Texans need a number of things, but they're all on the offensive line. They really don't need wide receivers anymore. That's for certain. Um, so I am going to sit here. Let's pull up their depth chart and put on the best offensive line player that fits what they need. Left guard, not good. Center, not great, but not awful. Right guard, not good. Right tackle, old and injured. Left tackle is the only spot that I wouldn't replace at all on this team. So basically, anywhere on the offensive line is good to go. You know what? Yeah, all right. They need someone on that interior, really. Or the right side, I guess, could work. I just think that's too much to pack the position to grab for them. I've seen people grab Sadiq for them. I'm not super sold on Sadiq. I'm just not. All right, Caleb Lomu probably is the best offensive lineman left in this draft. The Rams, as I talked about earlier, they have issues in the secondary. All right. Yeah, so they're a little bit shorthanded in the secondary. Their cornerbacks aren't great and they're small. Emmanuel Forbes Jr., very small. Roger McCreary, smaller and very, very short arms. I would like to see them grab a cornerback here, I think. I think Keith Abney would make a nice fit here. I'm going to grab him for him. All right, the Broncos. Been building this thing up defensively. Everybody wants to give them a tight end. We know how much Sean Payton loves to play with the tight end position. Let's just go ahead and give him Kenyon Sadiq. Patriots, Denzel Boston is my top target for them. I'm not going to lie to you. I could have taken him for Buffalo or for San Francisco. A little bit in the back of my mind that I wanted him here at 31 for this particular for first full round, first full first round mock draft. Um, so the Patriots are going to take him there. I've explained ad nauseum why he's a good fit there. Lastly, we've got to go and we've got to draft someone for the Seattle Seahawks. So, I'm only 4 minutes over. Excellent time. There we go. All right. Well, running down the offense, they're going to need a second receiver option. If Shaheed doesn't come back, this cup is not getting any younger. He's already old. Their offensive line, not great. They need a center. They definitely need a right guard. Defensive line was good. Linebackers very good. Cornerbacks very good, but the free safety might not be coming back. Running down that, I mean, wide receiver seemed like the most obvious need. I don't know if we have a guy here that we could justify taking. Yeah, I'm not sure there was a first round wide receiver. Let's take a look at the interior rocket. Oh, okay. You know what? I was just thinking, man, you slot Jennings Dunker in there, Gray Zabel on the other side. That'd be fun. You kind of dig that, to be honest. All right, you know what, guys? Honestly, I'm not super familiar with the offensive line scheme the Seahawks run, and I know that's going to change because Andrew Janaka got hired as the offensive coordinator in Vegas, and obviously will be moving on from a system that he really did some good for last year. But Jennings Dunker, I love this player. He's a good first round pick. I think this is it. So there it is. There you have it. That's my. I should have really. Oh, here we go. We're gonna go right down here. Fernando Mendoza, David Bailey, Francis Noah, Jordan Tyson, Caleb Downs, Monroe Freeling, sixth overall to the Browns. Arvell Reese falls to 7 to the Commanders. Ruben Bain goes to the Saints at 8. Peter Woods off the clock at 9 to the Chiefs. Sonny Styles to the Bengals at 10. Jermod McCoy at 11 to the Dolphins. Mansour Delane is the first of the Cowboys' 2 first-round picks. He's out of LSU at cornerback. Spencer Fano heads to the Rams. Carnell Tate comes off the board at 14 to the Ravens. TJ Parker at 15 to the Bucks. Jeremiah Love to the Jets at 16. Connor Lew to Detroit at 17. Caleb Banks at 18 to the Vikings. Makai Lemon at 19 to the Panthers. Keldrick Falk at 20 to Dallas. Drew Allers, the second and final quarterback in this first round mock draft. He goes 21 to Pittsburgh. 22, Vanya Yawani is how I have been told his name is pronounced. That's how I'm going with it for now. I'll let you know if I get corrected otherwise. He goes 22nd to the Chargers. Caden Proctor, 23rd to the Eagles. Emmanuel Pregnon, 24th for the Browns. Second pick of the first round. Dylan Thieneman, safety to the Bears, 25. Kevin Concepcion, wide receiver to the Buffalo Bills at 26. Omar Cooper Jr., back-to-back wide receiver picks. He goes to the 49ers at 27. Caleb Lowe at 28 to the Texans. Keith Abney, cornerback, heads to the Rams at 29. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end, 30 to the Broncos. Denzel Boston goes to New England at 31. And Jennings Dunker at 32. That is it. That's the final full first round mock draft of the channel. Guys, get in the comments. Let me know where you think I got it right. Let me know where you think I got it wrong. I'm sure there will be some disagreeing here. I know I took a couple guys earlier that consensus would say, and I probably left some guys off that maybe you think I should have taken. Let me hear about it in the comments, all right? Have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow with a real great video for your combine preview needs. So anyway, subscribe, follow, like, share with your friends. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.